Julie Brewer has ridden most of her life. Now as a certified saddle fitter, she created When the Saddle Fits to help horse and rider find a saddle fit that allows them to use their bodies correctly. Julie spent a year studying anatomy, movement, saddle construction, rider needs, and the process for combining these pieces. With this knowledge, she completed Mike Scott's certification program in South Carolina. Also during this time, Julie mentored under Kim Benson with horses and riders in South Dakota, Wyoming, and Colorado. Julie helps horse and rider, regardless of discipline or saddle type. She believes that life with horses is a journey that is much better when the saddle fits. Good saddle fit facilitates successful horsemanship. A horse that is comfortable can more easily relax and focus during training. A rider in a properly fitted, well-balanced saddle can more easily acquire good riding skills. In contrast, an uncomfortable horse is more likely to be anxious and exhibit unwanted behaviors and tension. Understanding saddle fit and how a horse moves go hand in hand. The horse's back oscillates up and down through alternating contraction and relaxation of muscles within the so-called ring of muscles of the hindquarters, back, neck, poll, jaw, lower neck, sternum, and abdomen. This simplified diagram shows the muscles of the back in pink relaxed and the muscles in red contracted, with the result that the dorsal ligament in blue is stretched. The back and the base of the neck are lifted, the neck extends, and the hind legs reach far forward. This exemplifies the concept of self-carriage, where the flow of energy comes from behind, the core lifts and frees up the front end, and it feels like the horse is moving upward and forward. Relaxed movement minimizes stress on the joints and helps the horse carry his rider with ease. This horse exhibits tension as seen with the elevated head, tense back muscles, and short stride and back. This kind of tension can contribute to increased strain on the stifles, hocks, tendons, suspensory ligaments, and feet. Factors causing tension include anxiety, as with this horse afraid of the gate, or, in this example, of rider ineffectiveness and poor saddle fit. This saddle pinches the horse's overly developed right shoulder. The rider is unstable and her lower leg swings forward and back. She sits too far back in the saddle, on his loins, during posting trot. She frequently bumps his mouth with the bit, and the girth is too far forward and pinches his skin and bumps his elbows. This horse is not being bad. He is trying hard to do the right thing, but he can't find a comfortable position. It's our job to ensure that the saddle does not impede the horse's ability to use his body correctly, and that the saddle supports the rider in a correct and centered position. It is obvious from this still photo that this horse can move relaxed, forward, and beautiful. For both English and Western saddles, the shape of the underside of the saddle should conform to the shape of the horse's back, from front to back and side to side, as well as adequately clear the withers. In addition, the shape of the back changes with age, as seen here with this older horse. The underside shape of a Western saddle is dictated by the bars of the tree, and the English saddle primarily by width and angles of the gullet and panels. In both cases, the saddle should allow the shoulders to move freely, and the rider's weight should be evenly distributed on the weight-bearing surface of the saddle, which should not exceed the last rib, often simply referred to as T18, the vertebra to which the last rib is attached. Weight and impact behind this point significantly stresses a horse's loin. Western saddle tree forms are used here to illustrate saddle fit characteristics. The Western bar and the English panel contact the horse's back and provide a weight-bearing surface. The gullet in both English and Western saddles dictate width and height adjacent to the withers. This Western tree form fits this horse's back quite nicely. The shape of the tree and the shape of the horse's back match. This same tree form also conforms nicely to the shape of the horse's shoulder at the front of the bar. These two Western tree forms have substantially different gullet heights. The top one would be appropriate for a high-withered horse. Gullet differences can be quite varied and are difficult to see when the saddle is finished out with leather and wool. This English saddle has a wide gullet, as indicated by the red line. The blue line exemplifies how a narrower gullet might appear. In fact, gullet width in English saddles is quite diverse, as seen with these exchangeable gullet bars. In a Western tree, the bar at the front of the saddle can have varying degrees of flare. The flare of the tree form in the upper left is nicely congruent with the horse's shape. The other tree form has no contact in the wither area, and the only point of contact is way at the bottom of the bar. A lot of flare is often thought to provide the horse more room for shoulder movement. However, if you take away too much bearing surface at the front of the saddle, you can create a pressure point in the region indicated by the red star and contribute to instability in the saddle. These two Western tree forms vary greatly regarding flare. The one at the top is very flared and the one at the bottom hardly at all. The rear of a Western saddle bar may also be flared, as illustrated with this tree form. This flat-backed horse does not need this degree of rear flare. In fact, a saddle tree made in this shape would diminish the weight-bearing surface at the back of a saddle for this horse. Rock describes the curvature of the saddle from the front towards the back. Horses' back shapes vary tremendously, from very flat to very curved. This horse has a lot of rock in the shape of his back, making him particularly difficult to fit, and yet a saddle with too much rock, as shown here, exhibits very undesirable instability. This is rock in an English saddle panel. The rear of the saddle has substantial upsweep and a banana-like shape. This saddle would conform nicely to the rock in the back of the horse shown in the previous slide. The rear upsweep of this English saddle would be referred to as rear flare in a Western saddle. This Western tree form has little rock. It's almost flat. This English saddle has very little rock and a flat panel. These examples would be better for a horse with a back that is flat from front to back. Bridging occurs when there is inadequate contact with the horse's back underneath where the rider sits. It occurs when the saddle is too flat for the horse's back. This saddle tree form bridges. There is no contact with the horse's back where the rider sits. Intense pressure points would occur in the locations indicated with red stars. Horses are generally more horizontal toward the rear and more vertical in the shoulder region. So, for the bar of a Western saddle or the tree of an English saddle to maintain conformity with the horse's shape from front to back, there must be a transition from the more horizontal slope, the red line, to a more vertical slope, the blue line. The change in slope from front to back is described by the term twist and occurs primarily underneath where the rider sits. This tree form is much too narrow for this horse, and as such, when the shoulder moves, the entire saddle shaped like this tree form would shift backward, so much so that the weight-bearing surface would exceed T18 where the last rib attaches. Rider weight rearward of this point places great strain on the horse's back and loins. This tree form is an extreme example of poor fit. Hopefully this presentation has been helpful for understanding saddle fit for your mount. Remember, life with horses is a journey, a much better one when the saddle fits.